after having this great discussion with Professor Staudler and Martina Schraudner, now we have a transition into industry and startup scene. So let me first introduce Sarah Scheidmantel. She's the moderator of the panel, and she's a cultural scientist and medical historian working on gender, sexuality, consumption, and medical history. And when she was asked about her vision for her research, she said, "I want to rethink ways to gender equality. I want this because only with the understanding that our world is of our own making, we achieve real gender equality faster. I can do this because with my research, I generate knowledge about how strongly historical gender concepts are connected to today's gender inequalities." So I wish you great fun with this panel, and please, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Zarifa, for the introduction. Yes, welcome to the second panel. Basically, I maybe should a bit disappoint you because basically we just continue what we already heard in the first panel with Flavia. But of course, I'm super happy because we have, of course, two new panelists. Maybe before I introduce both of them, I will shortly introduce also the panel, what we're going to hear, what we're gonna talk about. You can also already see it on the slide behind us. So basically, we're gonna talk about 4 topics. It's first of all, we start with a personal experience in this field. We're talking about power culture, so both of them are, I would call them like a bit, we're looking back, and then we try to look forward and into the future when discussing feminist knowledge transfer within industry. What does it mean? Where do we head to, or where do we want to head to? And also then specifically, how can we achieve a change in the startup scene and industry? Yes, so also in this panel we won't have a Q&A. I try to do it like that we have the 4 topics and that we discuss it here on the panel, and then that I then open it up for you in the audience. I beg you please to only ask questions that are connected to the panel, because otherwise we will run out of time. We have like 75 minutes, which sounds much, but is not much. Yes, so before we start the panel, I'm super happy to have our 2 experts here today. So sorry for the interruption. Coming back to our 2 panelists, I'm so happy to have you both here. They're both from different fields in the industry, and I would like to introduce both of them to you. So first I'll start with Dr. Ingrid Hamm. She's a co-founder of the NGO Global Perspectives Initiative, and she's intensely involved in the international dialogue on global development. So the Global Perspectives Initiative connects key decision makers representing Europe and Africa to shape a sustainable future. Dr. Hamm studied social sciences and economics at the Friedrich-Alexander University Erlangen-Nuremberg in Germany, where she also received her PhD. She was working for Bertelsmann Foundation, and at the same time she was still involved in academia. She established, for example, the MCM, Institute for Media and Communication Management at the University of St. Gallen, and refounded the Academy of German Media in Munich. She also led the Robert Bosch Foundation, and there she initiated, for example, the German School Award and the Robert Bosch Academy. And in 2016, Dr. Hamm co-founded the already mentioned Global Perspectives Initiative. Thank you for being here, Ingrid Hamm.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So, yeah. Our second panelist is Dr. Marianna Prokopi-Demetriades. She's a biotech innovator and clinical associate professor in research oncology. She holds a PhD in cardiovascular medical research from the British Heart Foundation and King's College London, and focuses on personalized oncology and its translation into innovative solutions for improving the quality of life in cancer patients in her research. She is the co-founder of 3 biotech companies. They are called RSL Revolutionary Labs Ltd, ProMed Bioscience Limited, and Theramir Limited. I won't explain what they all do, so in case of interest, you can ask her maybe later. She has received numerous awards for her work and is a member of different boards and committees, for example, the board of directors at the Cancer Research and Innovation Center Cyprus, where she's also based and where her companies are also based. And she volunteers as a mentor and role model for young people, and especially women, in many entrepreneurship programs. And she was included in the list of 10 women to watch in 2022 by the Global Women Network. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
So I'm so happy to have you here. And before we dig deeper into our panel and into the topic, I would first of all like to have one statement each from you. What do you think about this topic? What are your own thoughts on that? Maybe we start with you, Dr. Hamm.
My own thoughts on what?
On feminist knowledge transfer. Like, what does it mean to you? How do you see it in your own work?
You know, I grew up in a decade or in decades where, of course, you did need a mentorship, but I thought I have men mainly. The owner of Bertelsmann was one of my mentors. So men supported me. But then I learned that in the background there had been women who supported me as much. Somebody like Rita Süßmuth, who was in the advisory board, and only later I learned how many times she supported me in the board, telling, no, she's fine, let her do. So I believe in mentorship, and I think women can support other women even more. And the other thing I learned, I'm still not very good in that, but I wanted to go to television. So I did an internship at the television station in the north of Germany. And in the end, the leader of the department asked me whether I could imagine to join his department as a journalist. And I said, oh, but I don't know whether I can do it. I didn't get that job, you know, because I was so overwhelmed that I thought, I'm me? Oh, no, there are so many others who can do better. So this is one of the major failures of women, that they think others could be better than them. So those two experiences.
What about you? What are your thoughts on feminist knowledge transfer within industry? What's your own experience on that field? Have you had similar experiences as Dr. Ingrid Hamm? Or?
So when you sent me the question, you made me thought. Because there are things that we're doing in our daily lives, but we never put, in terminology on them. So I will start with a Greek word, because I'm Greek, as you can tell. I thought that what you meant is feminine ethos. And ethos is the beliefs, our values, our principles, our character. And for me, there are three ways of creating and sharing knowledge. First of all, as women, as feminines, we're thinking with others. So we're thinking together. We tend to disagree, but we disagree with respect. And third of all, we're thinking for others. So we're thinking for the needs of the others, as a community, as mothers, as friends, our family members. So what I want to put in the discussion today is to try to be authentic, try not to hide your feminine side, and maybe it's time for all of us to support each other and try to put our real self out there for creating a true impact in this world. So you made me think for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you very much for both of your statements. What I think is really intriguing when we're talking about personal experiences, I would suggest to use your personal experiences to go later on and talk about systems and stuff like that. But going back to your personal experiences, what I think is really interesting is that Ingrid Hamm said mentorship is really important, and you said also support is really important. So when you look back, like, where would you say, were you supported enough, or where weren't you supported enough? Or how do your experiences also shape, for example, your own, I don't know, role, for example, mentoring other people, helping other people? How do those experiences interact with your own being nowadays?
Look, my life wasn't easy. It was hard. I lost my mother when I was 9 years old, so the first role model that I supposed to have in my house, it wasn't there for me. So I grew up with my dad, that he tried to do, both jobs, be a mom and a dad at the same time. Then I moved from my country to England. I spent there 11 years in a very safe environment. So I was in the British Heart Foundation Center of Excellence, King's College, even though financially it was really hard. So I had to work 3 or 4 jobs during the summer, during the years in order to study. And then I took the decision to follow my husband in Cyprus. I spent 10 years in Cyprus, tried to see where I exactly belonged. Cyprus is a small island at the end of Europe. So in the biotech field, we are not there isn't an ecosystem. When I went there were a couple of universities only, very, very few research centers. It was during the financial crisis, so not the right environment to go there as a foreigner as well. At the same time, my dad was ill with terminal cancer. After 5 years, I lost my sister from cancer. So it wasn't a nice environment. I changed 7 jobs. I was working in academia, in research centers, in clinics. And at the end, I decided to do my own thing. So I loved risking. So with another colleague of mine, a male, we opened up our first startup. So imagine a young female scientist in Cyprus on the biotech field trying to raise money in order to save people from cancer. It was a no-no, so we went around looking for money. It was during the financial crisis, so we were only hearing no, no, no's. The local funding system was stopped for 7 years, so we were without a salary for many years. We did 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. At the same time, I had to care for my family. I had 2 children, so perseverance. We found our first money, we established a company, we created a second one, a third one. I didn't have a mentor, but I had a support system. So I had to train my family and my friends in order to see that to only have a secure career, for example, in the academia, it's not a one-way round. You can do something for yourself, even though the conditions are not ideal. So, and because I lost all the family members that I had, I thought, look, we have one life, okay? I may live for 3 years, for 10 years, for 50 years, you never know. So if I don't do what I want to do, what's the point of living? So I said, okay, Mariana, you have to harden up and start from somewhere. And that's from me. So I try now to, mentor other women, other young people, and try to, inspire them to do the things that they really want to do, even though life might be hard, but it's for everybody hard, so.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your personal experience. I think it's really inspiring. Also, when saying like we've only got one life. What about you, Ingrid? So, how do you see yourself? How was your support for you, and how do you support others?
One of the major learnings was all the time, that yes, we can. The same head of a department at the television station about 10 years later asked me to replace him. And I said, thank you. I'm much better off. So every other step, first you think you cannot meet the expectations, but then later on you learn that easily you can do. I admire what you do very much. I mean, of course, I was an CEO, but I was in a very safe environment and surrounding, and only after I have done almost everything, I started my own let's say, enterprise. My learning from this is women should take risk early on. Just really take risk early on. Of course you can fail, but as I said, what I learned, there is another door opening all the time. So it is good to take risk. It is very important not to ask for permission. Never ask for permission. What we did all the time is that we really thought we have to have an allowance to do what we do. Don't ask. And of course, don't excuse. When you tape conversations, open conversations around a table. Also today, I learn all the time when I'm in supervisory boards or so, when I mention something interesting, two men in the room start talking at the same time. Because something is interesting, of course, they think they have the license to talk while I'm talking. This is that you really have to be present, that you please really search the stage. Be present. As I said, don't ask for permission and never excuse.
Yeah, thank you so much. What I think is really interesting when I listen to both of you, you both used the word risk, take a risk. And I would like to dig deeper onto the risk topic and also coming to our second topic. It's about power culture, because I think risks are really deeply connected to the power culture we're living in. And also, of course, I think what is really striking is that, I mean, I was really wondering and asking myself, why are you talking about risk and why are you saying to the audience, okay, take the risk? Why do we need to, push that forward? And I think it's connected to the power culture we are living in. And I would really like to think about that and also ask you, how do you see the power culture that surrounds us? So meaning what you, for example, also already mentioned, sitting in a committee, two men starting to talk while you're talking. How can we address that? How can we deal with that? Also, especially in industry. I would like to go on with you because you were mentioning the example, Ingrid.
The power culture we are in is a little bit tricky, I think, because nowadays, of course, everybody is supporting women. That's a narrative everybody has to use. But there is a tendency to move women to those parts where they can't do much harm, meaning administration, human resources, something where they can do good things, but they do not disturb the real ones. So all those niches. So we as women should be aware of this, because we also have a tendency to love those things, and we love to be loved. To do something nice, not to do something difficult and hard. And then there's another trap we should avoid. This other trap is crisis. When a situation is desperate, really desperate, this is a moment when they engage women. to avoid to fail by themselves. I mean, it's really typical. So you can tell that enterprises are engaging women when there is a really difficult situation. So the one thing is where they do not harm. The other thing is where they might fail instead of me. So this two we really should avoid. And then I hated it all my life. I really don't like quotes. I don't like that kind of rules. But in fact, in industry, it really improved things a lot. I mean, Germany is very bad with women on the top, whether it's the supervisory boards, whether it's the government board, the managerial board, and in supervisory boards we became much better since we have those quotes, and in the managerial boards we get better slowly, but nevertheless we get somehow better. So when there is a rule, or when there is at least a Damocles sword, I don't know whether you understand this, then it helps, because only then people move. Because what I learned all the time is, when I was with Bosch, especially when I was with Bosch, not so much with Bertelsmann, we would engage women. We desperately are searching for women, but unfortunately there are none. I mean, there are none. Women engineering doesn't work. So there aren't one. And in hospitals, because the Bosch Foundation has a huge hospital, there used to be one was heißt Chefarzt auf English? Chief doctor? No.
Yeah.
What? Chief doctor? So there's only one chief doctor, and I guess she left. So this is a system where there are only men, although most of the medical students are women. In the end, there is no woman at all. The reason why is that's nothing for women. They cannot stand. They cannot stand the pressure. They want to have a family. It doesn't work out with a family. They cannot stand the pressure. And this narrative is so dominant that also the women who get up to a senior position in the hospital then explain by themselves, it doesn't work out with the family, you can't do that, the pressure is too high. So the narrative of too high pressure and the narrative on, unfortunately, women do not study those subjects are two narratives we really have to break through. And I think we only can break through if we just do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not the best example because I wear with foundations all my life, but I think the only way is that we really go there, and then there is a third thing that's not about a narrative and that's not about men, but men are aiming for something, and they are building their career. If you want to have more women, make something cheap, then you get more women because the men leave. Sorry, but that's why in Turkey universities are full of female professors, because they're so badly paid. What I want to say is, for women, be strategic, aim for something, and find your ways there. And I don't know a good English expression for that. It's not only networking, is stay at night after dinner when the real things are talked about. So not only networking, but really muddling through all of the networks around you, and be visible, be present all the time.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what you've been talking about is also, at least in my feminist circles, known as bro culture, like the typical one, you know, that what you described, that men hang out after work and then, you know, they make the big deals and women are kind of left out. And this is also part of the power culture we meet. Mariana, I mean, I would say you're the best example for what, I mean, best counter example for Ingrid just talked about, that, I mean, you're going your way, you're aiming at something with your experiences. But I'm wondering, where did you meet like the power culture that surrounds us, and how did you deal with that?
For me, it was a real shock 3 years ago. I got the award from the Cyprus Republic for research in life sciences. So I have a picture, but I cannot show now, that there were 15 men in the stage. In the middle, there were 2 women. One, it was me, that I got the award. And next to me, it was the president of the parliament. She was another female. So 2 days ago, after the award ceremony, I saw the picture in the newspaper, and I was shocked. I was like, wait, from all the Cyprus Republic for life sciences and STEM, they found only one woman to give an award to. So from that time, I thought, okay, maybe I have to do a little bit more and not just, you know, look only myself and my surroundings, but try to either empower more women or, you know, make a point to either the government, the regulatory boards, and the society in general. That wasn't only one example. In most of the boards that I am part of, I am the only woman, and most of the times they say, Mariana, please take the minutes of the meeting, or can you make some coffees? I mean, I don't mind to make coffees. I was working in Starbucks and Costa Cafe for many years. I have a barista certificate. I can do it out of my own pleasure, but don't tell me to make coffees. I'm not here to make coffees. As a woman that I moved from academia, research, science into the business perspective, it's really hard because I don't belong anywhere. I don't belong to academia anymore. I don't belong to the business world. So I'm somewhere in the middle. So when I'm going to my AGMs or I pitch to investors or I am in my own boards in the companies, I always have to be more prepared than my male partners. When I speak, I always have to put, the extra effort to sound, knowledgeable. And this is really, tiring and lonely. And even though we started as a 50-50 in our companies, last year we were 90-10, so we were more women than men, which I know it's not correct. Now we are 70-30, so I'm trying to find a balance. But I try to create an environment, because for me it wasn't easy to care for my family during financial struggles, at the same time to have 2 kids. I didn't have my mom or my dad to take care of the kids because they were already dead. So I had to create a difficult network in my home in order, to do what I'm passionate to do. So I was working extra job in order to have a person taking care of the kids. I was working a 3rd job in order to have enough money to have somebody to help, with the work that has to be done in the house. So I'm working for other people to take care of my house in order to do what I want to do, but at the same time, I'm putting a stop. Mariana is a mom after 6 o'clock. Mariana is a mom and a woman and a wife during the weekend. So unfortunately, during our nature, we have to take, the extra mile in order to do what we are passionate to do. But because I missed the family feeling, I also want to have my own family. So, yeah, we have to do more until our society is there, to help us around. But in my professional environment, I'm trying to teach, my colleagues, my female colleagues, that we have to support each other. So now you have a baby. Next year, Elena might have a baby. The year after, Teresa might have a baby. So we have to cover for ourselves. So we try to create our own timeline and time frames. Even though we do production and we have customers, we are very well organized in order to be on time to pick up the children from the school, to be, well advanced in time to go to the conference. So we can do everything, but we have to be, extra organizing ourselves. So a month ago, I took all the team in Milan for an expo and a conference. I have 2 young mothers that the children are, 5 and 6 months old. And for 3 months, I tried to convince them, okay, you can leave your children home with their dad. No, Mariana, it's impossible. We're breastfeeding. I know, but you have to train your husbands and the family, because that's not only the first trip that you're going to do. If you want to advance your career and do, your professional development, you have to be out there. You have to create a network, to create a brand for yourself. I mean, you might stay always with Mariana and Mariana's company, or you might create your own company. You might, do something else. So you have to get prepared. So for 3 months, they were, training their husbands and their family how to take care of them. And we spent 5 days in Milan. And I saw different people around me, so much energetic that they want to do, something in their lives, not just, routine work. So I'm sure you can do it. You have to create, the right tools and engage with them. We are always trying, because we are a young team, but we are growing very fast. I mean, 2 years ago, we were only 4 people. Now we are 18. So we are trying to create a nice, safe environment, and always to remind our values as a company, as people, our priorities. So I'm sure that we can make the change. It might take a lot of effort, but there are mechanisms to be there. In Cyprus, it's a very small community, but we try to make a difference. So we have created 4 or 5 different female organizations. One of them is a commercial organization. So it's the ICC Women Cyprus. So we have women for different fields, biotech, health, financial, banking, etc., etc. So we have created lists with women leaders in different fields. So now we are the police of Cyprus. So when we see a panel or a conference, and we see only, obviously, men in the panel, we're sending, and they tell us, oh, they're not available women, blah, blah, blah. So we send the list to them. And we expect that not 30, 70, 50% are women. So now we are well known, so everybody is afraid of us. And before they are inviting us, they have already, including other women. So it's a small country, and we might see change faster, but somebody has to do it.
Before I open to the audience, my last question would be what I think. I mean, when we think back about the last panel we heard, which was about academia, and that there you have like a really, I would call it like a strict system of like where you can go, how you can, let's call it behave, and how you can adapt to different behaviors, blah, blah, blah. I feel what you described is like maybe more open in industry, or at least when you found yourself, that you can say, okay, I'm setting boundaries so that I, for example, have free evenings, that I have free weekends. Is it only my perspective, or would you both agree when you found and when you're in industry that it's like more, that there are more possibilities and to create your own life, let's say?
I can be fast on that. I worked in a big pharma in Cyprus. It was really difficult. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't even take a day off. And when I had to care for my dad, I asked for a month off without payment. they couldn't give it to me, so I quit. So, but that was like 10, 12 years ago. So that type of industry, it didn't help me at all. Now that I'm doing my own thing, I am flexible, and because I had a really difficult life, I'm trying not to repeat the same mistakes that other people were doing to me. However, in academia, I was the only woman in the biomedical engineering department. I knew that there was no future for me there because they couldn't open another, tenure position. Like for the past 10 years, they didn't open one. They were only, the big male professors. So it wasn't an environment for me. And the same in the hospitals. I work in 2 hospitals. I was always the young female scientist. And it wasn't a nice environment. I wasn't feeling appreciated or that I could, make a change. So for me, it was a choice without a choice to start something new. I don't know for you. Maybe it was different, but yeah.
How was it for you?
As said, I'm from a different generation in a way. I had the privilege and the freedom to kind of invent my own projects and consider concepts and strategies by myself in the surroundings of those foundations I had been working in, and now, of course. So I myself, I didn't draw those boundaries. I love to travel, and I did travel a lot all my life long, so I took that freedom, but otherwise being available was something, I was available, and I expected others to be available. So this is a new generation that has this clear borders and have that separation from the one life and the other life. I have now children. I think that makes a big difference. So my husband knows me, and he's fine with what I'm doing. Sometimes he complains, but it's not a big thing. With children, it might be totally different. So you have to be much more disciplined by yourself. I mean, also I had the freedom not to be too disciplined, but then, of course, maybe work on Sundays or whatsoever. I think the new generation, and also the new generation in the industry, so the bosses, the female bosses, hopefully, they have a different concept. I think this new concept is fine, where you have more freedom, more remote work, that you can have another balance in between your private life and your professional life. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, at least not only for those who are working with you, but for the one who is the boss, because when everybody is so somewhere, sometimes the feeling of being one, the feeling of being us, is suffering a bit. But I don't complain. I'm another generation. The new generation is finding new and better concepts. So.
Yeah, so thank you. What I think is really interesting is that we there already can see that there is, a movement within industry, within also, ourselves, like what's important to us. I would now like to open to you, to the audience, to ask questions on our topic, power culture. And I already saw Zarifa wanting to ask a question.
Thank you. Yes, you actually already asked the question I wanted to ask about that. The most women actually who not agree with these very high hierarchies and big companies, they just quit and start up on their own. And to create that alternative working culture where you share the work, you share the responsibility, and you share the success. So you create this new structure. Do you think that, I mean, companies, big companies, are now desperate into looking into new leadership styles? How do you manage in the best way diverse teams? How do you create that kind of culture you already created for your startup? What do you think can then women who are founders what kind of advice can they give to those big companies? Are there some tricks that you can say, okay, this and this will make your life easier and will get the most of the potential you're having in a diverse team? Thank you.
You are the role model. You should start.
What can I say for, the big companies? I don't know. I mean, I tell you what. I don't know if it's just, a fashion or hot now to have startups. They are very fashionable. Everybody has a startup. And you hear in the news that acquisition and these acquisitions and millions and, unicorns around you. For me, it's really difficult to have 3 companies. I mean, suddenly I have to start talking about financial projections, sales, meet your projections. Then you are meeting with your investors. Then, we need, an early exit, this and that. So you need to have a balance. Big companies, especially in the biotech field, they don't do that much of research anymore because it's expensive and it takes a year. So the norm now is to buy out smaller companies, smaller startups, and acquire the technology from them. So this is a very nice exit, for everybody, for the founders, for the private investors. However, are we trying to create a small research and academia within a startup in order to sell out our technology, or we try to create a new ecosystem? And this is where everybody's confused now. So, Zarifa, I don't know if the leadership in the big industry want to create a change or they're already doing something for the change. Depends on who's the leader. I know that now there are female founders and female leaders that they're trying to create changes. However, I think we are only 10% in the world at the moment, so that will take time to see a change. But as a female startupper, I don't want just to have a cheap and easy exit. I know that my investors might want this, but it's not what I'm trying to do. We're trying to have an impact in the society. And that's why I chose to remain in Cyprus. I chose to invest the hard-earning money from our investors into creating a very nice facility that we are actually doing production. As I said before in the break, that Cyprus is known for the halloumi cheese and money laundering. So I want to change that. Even though I'm not Cypriot, I'm Greek. I feel that Cyprus now is my home. We have a very nice quality of life. You can be within 5 minutes by the beach, within 1 hour in the mountains, doing ski. I can take my children from school, and then after 30 minutes, I'm back at work. So it's a very nice balance. But there wasn't a nice ecosystem to build what I was trying to do. So we are creating that. It's not only me. There are other founders. So I cannot speak about the big industry players. I can only speak about our own little startup ecosystem that I know people are just tired of, early exits and all this big money that are around there. And we try with quality and excellence, slowly to create our own ecosystem and, make it feasible for, other, the young generation to be part of that and, either take equity and, be part of the success. So for me, that's my model, and that's what I want to keep, even though it might not bring financial success fast. But I'm sure that if you are, authentic and try to create, a difference in this world, and have a nice sustainable plan. At some point, you might be, scientifically successful, product successful, and financial success is coming along the way. I mean, it's part of it. So let's see if we are still alive the next 3-4 years, and we will not, close down the companies. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
You had asked for advice for big enterprises somehow. And it's not only about women, but they have to support entrepreneurial thinking, not only startups inside the whole company, but also in every department, in every layer of hierarchy, to have a support of entrepreneurial thinking. Because what we really need is we have to be innovative. I mean, especially here in Europe, we have to be much more innovative than we used to be. We are a little bit lazy in thinking we had been so innovative in the past that will last forever. And then because we are dealing in a dialogue with Africa, and in Africa, there are no big enterprises, but a huge market if it's once discovered. And entrepreneurial thinking is the only way for progress. And there are extremely smart entrepreneurs there. You can find many of them, especially women are so great. So my advice for the entrepreneurial, for the big enterprises in Europe would be foster your startups around you and foster startups abroad. Because you have to discover new markets, you have to discover new fields, and therefore go with those who are innovative and go with those where there are new markets. So I would really advise in this direction. And then what you said is so important, because this exit philosophy is so toxic. When everybody is expecting an exit in 5 years, at least in 7 years, a market like Africa doesn't promise that, because there is nobody who can then, there's no pharma industry who would buy your startup then. So we have to find a way, a philosophy, a narrative that starting an enterprise in the past never was about selling it after 5 years. All the huge entrepreneurs we admire so much did build for generations, not only for their own life, but they thought the enterprise has to survive, not me, the enterprise has to survive. An exit after 5 years was a totally stupid idea for them. So we should try to find a new narrative where enterprise does not mean exit, but enterprise does mean enterprise.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got here a second question.
Thank you so much for the wonderful talks. I feel so inspired by the two of you. So my question is, because I noticed that females, we as women, we are faced with so many, I won't say problems, but so many tasks. You want to have a family, you want to have a career, you want to write a proposal, you are filled with so many things to do. And then you talked about being present and being available. So my question is, how do you manage your time to be present in this aspect? Because I feel, I have to write my paper, and then I have a conference, and I'm thinking about getting married. I'm thinking about getting. So it's getting too much for me, and I don't actually know when to fit in my career, because I'm also a career person. So I want to ask, when did you start working towards your career, even with your family and so many things that you have to do? And also, when do you think you have to be available? Because it's like a little bit...
May I? This is a major mistake. You know, when there is an advertisement, when somebody is looking for a new person, men apply when there is a 30% overlapping in between their profile and the profile that's asked for. Women only when it's more than 80%. What it means is we want to do well, and we are never ever good enough. We never had really done our homework. So we think, when I'm better, when I'm good, when I'm doing better, even better, then they will realize, and then they will, then I will reach the next step. You have to think about, I'm good, I'm really good, period. You want me to do that job? I do it. And only afterwards get your things together and fulfill the expectations. That's how men do it. I don't think that we have to be like men, but this is something we really can learn from the way men perform. I did that failure all my life long, that I thought, oh, I'm not good enough. I haven't done my homework well. I'm not appropriate. I'm not the right person for this position. Totally wrong. So, and then when you have that, when you get rid of all this, then you have time. I mean, a family is not a thing of women. Family is a thing of men as well. So when men can find a way to spend the weekend with the family and to be a CEO at the same time, I mean, why not us? It's not that old-fashioned model of a man is working all night long, and the woman has to assist all her life long. When we have to change our narratives, they have to change their narratives as well. So then we will find a way how we can spend the weekend together. But really get rid of this, I have to do, because this makes you small.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. I totally agree with you. We're doing two things. We overthink and we try to be perfect.
Yeah.
So nobody's perfect. You know, you can be amazing into your own perfection. The thing is, you have to go with the flow. There is never a good age to be a mother. I mean, when you start in a PhD, you might say, oh, I don't have time to become a mother. Then you finish your PhD, you start the postdoc, then you change the country. I mean, come on. There is never the right timing. You have to have, you know, a vague vision and your goals as a person, and you can set a vague timeline. For me, it was always a matter of a decade. So I was telling to myself, okay, within the next 10 years, I want to become that, this, and that. And throughout, in a yearly basis, I was checking. What were the steps, you know, in order, you know, to be successful in my goals? So I said, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, so I'm changing again. And you have to be aligned with what you want to, you know, succeed in your life. You have to set your goals. And every now and then, you have to, you know, rearrange your life. But don't overthink. I know that it might not be the best advice, but try to connect your mind with your heart. And once you find the balance, then you're going to be a happy person. So whatever works for you, That's the best solution for you. That's my only advice.
There's another question, and then I would like to move on to the next topic, so please.
I hope I don't open now the door too big, but I will still place it on terms of networking. Especially Ingrid Hamm was saying like we should be at the party, and I would see myself being at the party, but I see myself also having difficulties being at the party in terms of I'm the woman that likes now and then also to dress feminine and feel comfortable in my femininity, and that then ends up with a collaborator, a man, at the bar, drinking the beer to discuss visions, which is very different than when two men are standing after the party at the bar and drinking a beer. So I know this would probably, we could do a whole workshop on how to network, but I just would like to get some tips or advices of how protect myself from sexual harassment, misinterpretation, and also be taken serious with my visions as a woman.
Maybe you are better that you are younger.
It doesn't. Yeah. That's a huge chapter, huh? Okay, I will start with the easy stuff. Nowadays, it's easier to create a network. We have LinkedIn, we have societies, something that we didn't have like 10 years ago. Today, you are part of a network. We are female science talents. So, and you are in the intensive track, so you are 20 selected ones. So take advantage of this, okay? So it's easy to become part of a network. There are many networks for female empowerment in science, STEM, entrepreneurship, whatever you think of. So apply to everything, either to become a mentee, to become a mentor, to be in the advisory board, to give a speech. You learn a lot from this. So for me, it was really difficult being in Cyprus, in the middle of nowhere, to be part of the network. Okay, so I started slowly with a UK-based network, then with Zarifa, thank you for including me, then with another network, then we created Cyprus-based networks, then with the Diaspora Network, which is a Greek-based network from people living in the US, Australia, and elsewhere in the world. So once you become part of one network, then it opens up. Now, the relationship between males and females in the professional environment, it has to do completely with your character. Okay, so you have to set the boundaries. It's very easy for a man, when you are young, attractive, to misbehave. So it's up to you to put boundaries. So now, me as a person, I'm very cut off. I mean, I speak what I think immediately, and that may create sometimes, put them in a difficult position, but I have a way that I'm laughing as well at the same time. So even though you create a difficult position, at the same time, by saying a joke, it helps. So you have to find your own way. Also, you can create a protection around you, a shield, so you can get another colleague with you, and until you know how you can handle the situation. So there are always a way to do that. And it's not only a matter of a male towards a female. There are females going against, male collaborators. So you can always find a way to protect yourself and protect the relationship. And once you have set the boundaries, I don't find a problem. I had worse problems when I was working in the academia with, older supervisors, than now that I am in the industry, and it's a matter of self-esteem. I know who I am. So nobody's speaking to me like this. Nobody is even, touching me like this. So they know. So it's a matter of how you present yourself. So if you know where you stand and who you are, nobody will say anything to you. So it's a matter of presentation, create a brand of you. And that's my advice. It happened to everybody.
Would you like to add something?
I mean, as I said, I'm a little bit older, and I grew up in another generation. I'm really astonished and kind of sad that I thought we have fought it through. And now it seems to be the same as it was 50 years ago, that is, or let's say 30 years ago. This is somehow irritating, but otherwise I'm totally with you. Never show you are a victim. What we learned in New York 25 years ago, when there had been all those no-go areas around, never show you are a victim. So be sovereign, be by yourself. And show your boundaries. What I felt all the time is much more tricky than a man trying to convince you to do something. This I thought all the time. Maybe I'm a little bit harsh in myself, so men are a little bit more cautious. But I found this not too difficult to handle. What I found really hard to handle is, I give you one example. When I was with the Bosch Foundation, we had a literature award ceremony, and the moderator asked me to the stage saying, I won the lady who smells so well coming to the stage. I didn't react at all. I mean, I smiled it away, as we do all the time. Okay. The situation was over. But a board member of mine, we didn't like each other too much. He afterwards told other board members, you cannot imagine what this Dr. Hamm did that night. So I had been offended by a moderator. I was so kind not to make a scandal. And then I had been the one who had been guilty.
Yeah.
And you can find this only when you learn about it, because it's behind the scene. I mean, they are judging on you without you knowing at all. So this, in my opinion, it's much more difficult. This behind the scene making women small, diminish them, offend them. So this is much more difficult to deal with, and I think this is something you really have to bring to the stage and talk about it.
I mean, I'm astonished by what you say, but because I really think, I mean, this leads perfectly to our next topic, like the feminist knowledge transfer. I mean, because I was wondering, I mean, you were talking about men and women, but I mean, what we already saw in the last hour was like, there's always a way for women where you can go, or how you can like bring the system forward. And I was wondering, I mean, we've been talking since we are all women, we've been talking about being a woman and how to found companies and stuff like that. But I was wondering, maybe it's also a problem of the system we found those companies in. So maybe it's not about like men against women. Of course, I mean, what you told us, the examples is like, it's so shocking that men behave like that, but I mean, they can only behave like that because they're in this kind of system. So I was wondering, maybe it also helps when we are talking about like the feminist part in the topic, like the feminist culture, knowledge transfer. What does it actually mean? Like, what is it? Maybe also that we need to rethink the system we found in. For example, I mean, we've already had examples: set boundaries, making breaks, so that we can also have companies and family and friends, and how can we achieve that? I was wondering, what do you think about changing like the toxic industry system into something better, into something, I would call it like feminist?
I think if it was a true, representation of females, nobody will say that to you. If there were, 50% women in the board, there is no way that somebody will say something like that. So the way is to have a fair representation in everything in life. I mean, 50% of the board are female. So come on, I mean, we have to make a change. This change has to start from our own family. Last week, my son, he's 8 years old, and even though that he sees that maybe I'm working more than dad and I'm very active, he said, I did 3 trips this month. I didn't know that mommies can travel for work. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, come on. I mean, and I'm a very active mom. I mean, I'm not a mom staying at home. So I'm sure that he heard this from somebody in the school. So I try, you have to train and educate first your own family, and then slowly your professional environment and the society. So you have to start from somewhere. We have another program that we run now in Cypriot schools. So we visit schools at different, age levels and try to, inspire them either to follow STEM or, have a little bit of entrepreneurial mentality. So you have to start with education. The thing is that, especially in the health sector, you need to hear all voices, female, male, but femininity is, we bring in compassion. And in the health systems, you need compassion because we're talking about care. And this starts from, the biotech, when you're actually working towards finding a solution to a problem. We talk about the clinics, we talk about palliative care, we talk about care in the house. So if you have a patient in the house, it's not only a patient's problem, it's a family problem, because the whole family suffers, especially with oncology, when you have a person that deep inside you, you know that he has like a 60% chance to survive, depending on, the cancer type. And you know that difficult years are coming because you might have a person that he needs palliative care. So if we don't have a feminine approach into research, we are missing. And we are missing out because as a person that I took care of 2, family members throughout the cancer journey and towards the end of their life, I saw problems without solutions. And I started speaking, with the oncology hospitals that I was working on, and they said, an example, how I founded my third company. My sister had a radiation burn from radiation therapy. And I was wondering with the doctors, okay, there is nothing that we can put. They said, okay, you can, try a very good conditioning cream. It didn't help. So I said, okay, so actually you don't have anything that we can use on this patient, and you are working on radiation therapy for the past 40 years? He said, no, we can put, a cream or talc. Okay. So when my sister died, I said, okay, maybe I can create something, for these people, because the quality of life is really reduced. So I start creating, dermaceuticals for, fighting the skin conditions that you have as a result of chemotherapy, radiotherapy. So I was focusing only on female health. Then my father-in-law had prostate cancer, and he had radiation burns in sensitive areas. And I was like, oh, man. People with, prostate cancer have also problems, and men never talk about these problems to their wives or whatever. So if I wasn't there, I wouldn't see that. So I said, okay, let's create a line for male patients as well, for these specific needs. And then I started talking with my male partner at work, and I said, okay, Costa, other problems that you can think, as a male patient. And we start including, everybody else. So especially in the sector of health, you need to hear all voices. And that's what we have to try and do, in the way of innovating and improving our quality of life. We have to be inclusive, so we have to bring in the innovative mind of female, the compassion. For sure, we take care more of our family members, so we have to see everything, and that's what we try to do now. We try to close the gap between science in the lab, hospitals, and patients. So we need to create a nice, circle, including the voices of everybody.
You are asking about the narratives, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. For me, I think it's really important that we give loose to the narratives that had been kind of dominant in the first phase, saying in the last century, the late last century, because, at least in my opinion, women too much insisted or too much showed that they are harmed. They complained too much, in my opinion. It's much better to ask for things, not to complain about not receiving what they own. So, and feminist narratives in the 90s and the early 2000s, but mainly in the 80s and 90s, were very much about complaining. So they don't complain, ask for something, or just do it, be sovereign. And that the new narrative should focus much more on, is there a question? Where there's a question, of course we do. Yes, we can. So have more sovereignty, and the more women in place, the more women follow. So when you can make sure that there are women on the top somewhere, many others will follow. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Unfortunately, when I'm looking at the clock, we've more or less run out of time, unfortunately. But I thank you so much for the panel. What I think we can all take with us is that we can just do it, that that mentoring is really important, so top-down mentoring, but also bottom-up, what you also said, educating your environment, educating your children, educating your partners, all the people you're together with. I think this can create a new system, a new sphere where we can really aim the aims we want to. I hope you enjoyed the talk as much as I did. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your insights, your personal insights, your visions. So yes, and now we're gonna have lunch, and thank you for listening.